Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Would love to hear where you are in the world. Please do post a comment and let us know. I have Rhett Burden here with me again. He's back again. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Good morning. I am in beautiful San Francisco. It's about 80 plus degrees. We don't normally have days like that. So it is morning where I am. It's a beautiful day, and I hope it's a beautiful day for you and everyone out there
Yeah,
in
I'm
the
in San
Nathan State.
Diego. It's also
Ah,
beautiful here.
beautiful most of the year. So I am jealous of that weather.
Oh yeah, it's pretty nice all year. We get a little hiccups, but for the most part, it's good. We've got another Bay Area. We've got Illinois. We've got
Ah,
Chicago.
Bay
So
Area, Chicago. Hey, Illinois. Hey, everybody. So nice to see you all. Hopefully, the weather is nice for you all in that Austin, and everybody's having a great day on purpose. And thank you all for
yeah,
tuning
yeah.
in.
So, just to introduce myself, I'm Catherine Mattice, founder of Civility Partners, and we've been in business for going on 15 years next year. I can't believe it. We turn around toxic work environments and focus a lot on building respectful civil workplaces. And Rhett here is an author, a husband, and a father. I love how your website says girl dad. So tell us more about what you do, and we're going to be talking about equity and inclusion here. So thanks for joining me again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one, congratulations on hitting year 15 next year. Can't believe that it's almost 2024. So, congratulations to you and the company.
Thank
And
you.
yes, I am a girl dad. I say that with so much pride. I have a beautiful 2-year-old daughter, a wonderful wife, and I have been an author for a very long time. Interestingly enough, I don't know if I've put the years on it. I've written 7 books in total. 2 of them were professional development books. I started off when I was in undergrad and graduate school, so it's been a very long time. The first book was called Brother Please, a guidebook to life and leadership tools for the sane and advice for the crazy. I think that came out in maybe 2010, 2011 while
What
I
a
was still
great
in school.
title.
Thank you. Thank you. The next one was called Mistakes. My pencils don't come with erasers, just like lessons. And then I shifted into doing children's picture books. And that was because prior to me having my own child, I became the uncle to my co author's son. And I like children, but I had never been exposed to them with the same level of regularity and frequency as when he was born. And I had the opportunity to go to what was then, I guess, a PTA meeting. And he was at a Montessori school. And not only was he the only Black child in his class, when we looked at the children's picture book literature that they had, I mean, there's Sesame Street and Daniel the Tiger and some of the popular books. And then there are these things that are monsters and really cute stuff. But I didn't see any books that represented what he looked like, what his experiences were, and were occupational based. So his dad and I said, instead of trying to just complain or to share our feedback, we should do something about it where we make him the center of a story. And that's when we wrote When I Grow Up, I Want to Be, which is a series, super healthy, super smart, and super rich. That led into wanting to write other stories. So then I wrote Dentist Debbie and then My Melanated Munchkin. So 7 books in total. Love the children's picture book space. Love writing in sort of the rhythmic, sort of jingle-esque style.
Yeah.
So it can be sung if it had to, but it's easy to catch on, easy to understand. And I love the representation component of allowing children of color to see themselves as not just a superhero or an or a monster, but just these regular occupations where they can do amazing things.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of fun being on that journey.
That's so awesome. What a great way to get into something like that. And I think a lot of us, we when we get to do something we're passionate about and also get to change the world while we're doing it, it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
And we before the show started, I also have 2 kids, and I definitely feel like I, given what I do for a living, try to make sure I'm buying books that are representing all sorts of cultures. And, we've got a book about grandma's house, and it's kind of that rhyme, but it's, like 5 uncles with ham hocks, and we don't eat ham hocks in my house, but we have one about a Jewish holiday. So just like really trying to make it normal for books to have all sorts of people in them. And so I appreciate, I'll definitely have to buy your books for my 4-year-old.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. And yeah, I mean, there is such a richness and so many diverse books about all different types of cultures and people and stories. And it's so amazing to be able to expose children to that at such an early age. So, and to really make it commonplace and normal that you don't have to go to a special section. There shouldn't be a diversity section. No, these are culturally rich and amazing stories that everyone should be exposed to. So I very much appreciate that. And I'm so happy that your children are already being exposed to that kind of literature. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, super excited to be a part of that.
What's some of the research around, I'm just thinking back to like when I was a kid, definitely all the books were of white children, and at least all the books in my house. And what's the research, or what does it do for a child when they can't, or they don't have books or TV shows that represent them, and they were only watching maybe white people with a token person of color, versus now where what's the difference in their adulthood going to look like?
Absolutely. Well, I think that when we think about the way children learn, and as we can help shape their perception of the world, when you only see a particular type of child or hear a particular type of story, you begin to digest that. And not only can you put certain people or stories on a pedestal, it almost becomes something godlike, where if everything that I see is one particular way and there's a hegemony, not only in the stories but in the characters, well, that must mean that there is something wrong with me, because there is no visual representation of who I am, what my family looks like, what's important to our culture. And I think that it really does plant a deep-seated root of not only low self-esteem, but it would really cause you to question your self-worth. And some people don't think about it that deeply or that intrinsically, but when you think about little t trauma and big T trauma, and the way your perspective is on people and communities, and the way you would choose to engage with the world, and the friends that you choose to have, and the conversations that you're a part of, I think those seeds are planted very early on. One of the things that my co-author and I talked about is the power of metacognition, which is really a fancy way of saying that you have to think about what you're thinking about. And you can only think about what you're thinking about when you are exposed to a variety of thoughts that aren't just based on one particular level of hegemony. So I think that that's so important. And when my nephew or his son had a chance to go to school and he presented these books, and actually, you know what, I have a book and I will show one. Not only was the pride that he exuded to his teachers and his classmates amazing to witness, but they wanted to hear the story. It's not just, oh, this is my classmate. Oh, no one talked about why it's important to be super healthy or super smart or super rich, and what you can do and how you can shape your life when these are the things that are important to you. So I think it's an amazing thing, and something that we need to run counter, because in us sort of this technocratic social media age, where we are in an age of comparison at a very early age, and children have access to tablets and things that I just didn't have access when I was a child. It was go outside and figure it out.
Right.
And now my daughter can ask me for an iPad to watch YouTube Kids. And I just think about, wow, the way the world is being shaped, and the way you see yourself in that world has a lot to do with what you see, what the images and the stories are behind what you see, and the way it makes you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
So it's so important.
That makes a whole lot of sense. And I'm with you. If we did watch TV, we had to get up and change the channel on our own, because to go outside and ride bicycles with all the random neighbor kids that we didn't really know, but we had a blast out there.
Absolutely.
So what's one of your most popular books? Or do they always, I know on your website it says they come as a set. Is there one that's most popular?
Yes, I would say I think that one of the most popular books is probably the trilogy series, the When I Grow Up, I Want to Be Super Healthy, Super Smart, Super Rich. And if I had to pick one, I think Super Rich is a little provocative sometimes when parents are looking at it, because they're like, super rich, well, I don't want, my child to be consumed with money, and it's really about what it allows you to do. So when we were writing the story, it says, when I grow up, I want to be super rich so I can help the less fortunate. And it takes these twists and turns about all the things that you can do to give back to people that are in need, to give to your community, and what access to wealth does. And when we think about health, not just the general health perspective, when you may have one or two health classes as you're growing up, but you only have one body. And unfortunately, if you don't take care of it, you can't just unzip it like we would see in like Men in Black or some of the sci-fi movies and put on another one.
Yeah, then, it's not IKEA. We just get another one.
Absolutely. And then even with Super Smart, unfortunately, there are negative stereotypes when there are Black children that are smart. Sometimes there will be things that say, like, you are acting a certain way, or you are as if intellect and intelligence and just the gifts bestowed upon you from the creator and your parents and your environment are a bad thing. It's just like, no, it's okay to be smart. It's okay to believe that you belong in every room that you enter, that you can hold your own intellectually, that you have something to add to a conversation, which means you have something to add to the world. And to write them in these jingle-esque sort of nationwide is on your side sort of phraseology. It's so cute and it's fun. And hearing him read it to his classmates was one of the highlights for me.
I bet. And these are stories that anybody can read. It's important for your nephew and your children to see themselves in these stories. And
absolutely.
I want to switch gears a little. And also, by the way, if you have any questions, by all means, ask them and we will make sure they get answered. Rhett, I brought back because he's very, just such a great speaker and has so much good stuff to say. And, sometimes conversations like this can be hard, a little white fragility happening, so I appreciate that you're here with me and answering questions and talking to me. So I'm in a networking group, and we started a DEI, kind of an initiative. I guess we're sort of a committee, and it's so weird to me because we're battling this point of view where we're hearing some people. I mean, it's a very large networking group, so there's a lot of us, and it's nationwide. And some people are like, well, why are we doing that? This is a networking group, and it's, in some ways, it's like so mind-boggling to me. Like, but don't you care that there are not a lot? Like, we need more representation from more people in here. Doesn't that bother you? And so it's like just this constant having to sell the business case for why this matters in business. And it's, I don't know. I guess there isn't a question. I'm just expressing my frustration.
Okay.
I wonder, do you have your books face anything like that? Do they, because I would love to buy a set and donate to a couple of, my children's schools and things. Do you get pushback at all? Have you been able to really push this out there, your books?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that when we initially wrote the books, obviously it was to empower my nephew or my co-author's son. And then the other stories, we thought it was important to have a level of gender parity, because we would meet parents that say, hey, either I have a non-binary child or I have a little girl, and do you have stories for them? And that was never the intention initially. It was just to do something positive for my nephew, because at the Montessori school, and as amazing as they are in allowing students to learn at their own pace and to have this free-flowing sort of curriculum, he just didn't see himself. And not only was he the only Black child in the class, none of the stories, and I love Elmo as much as the next person. But Elmo is a monster. So I would say when we would chat with other parents and we would get their feedback, one of the things that we would always mention to folks is that this is not about trying to denigrate another community or say that just because we are doing something specific and tangible for him as a Black child, that it is meant to take away. Because no, the stories are universal. In the same way, the communities of color have had to weave and ebb and flow and find meaning in stories where they weren't represented, either in the character, the storyline, or even sort of the cultural competencies. It is important that we are coming from a perspective that allows people to learn, to grow, and to invite them in. And we've done readings at, local libraries or in classrooms, and sometimes students or parents will ask, and it's really more so the parents. The students are excited because to them it's just a story. There's these bright, beautiful colors. And to parents, sometimes it's like, hey, I noticed that you may not have had any white children in the story, or I don't see where they're a centerpiece. And the interesting thing about that is that you're right. It's not about excluding them intentionally. It's about doing what we can to level the playing field. Because if I were to ask you how many books in your house or how many books in your children's library feature white children or white stories, you'd say plenty. And if I were to ask you, well, how many feature stories about children of color? Well, then maybe not so much. And I think what's important is that we are inviting people into conversation. It's not to wag our finger to say one way is right or one way is wrong. It is to say that, hey, we need a diverse collection of stories and characters, and allow children to gravitate towards what they think is best. And when you are challenging the parents, going back to that metacognition, to think about what they're thinking about, then it goes, oh, it's not about you trying to be partisan, because we live in such a partisan world. Everything is taking on these political undertones, or people are remixing what they believe the word woke is. And then it's always, are we going too far? When in all actuality, if we are comparing it to the lineage of pain, despair, hurt, harm, half-truths that have been told, we are really just scratching the surface of what it means to be at a place of inclusivity and equity on all levels. And again, when you are inviting people to think about what they think about, and not just wagging your finger at why don't you believe or why don't you see the value, and it's okay. It's not about me convincing you of the story's value. It's about, did you resonate with the story? Right. And are you open to introducing it and allowing children to make their own decision? Because it's okay. I'm a big fan of personal professional development. And I think Tony Robbins is probably one of those larger names that people gravitate to, or Les Brown or Lewis Howes. And I don't resonate with every message. And that's okay, because every message isn't meant for me. But I take and I hold on to the things that are meaningful to me. And that's what the goal of the writing is, to allow children to hold on to what's meaningful to them.
See, everyone, why I love having you. I'm going to hang out with you.
That's thank you. That's so kind. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Just ordered them, so I'm definitely going to order a couple copies also, and have some in my home and donate to my child's school. So thanks, Jennifer. Everybody get on the bandwagon. Let's do it. And I think, kind of tying back to my little rant earlier, that's what I hear sometimes. The complaint in my professional association is like, well, we don't want to keep white people out in the interest of bringing. It's like, it's not to replace anybody or keep certain people out. It's just, why not bring, when you look around the room, there's maybe 2 people of color in here. Why not? There's plenty of professionals out there that meet our criteria that are not white, and why wouldn't we seek them out, and have them here? So it's just so interesting to me that there is this feeling of well, the playing field's already level, so why would we do that? It's like, well, no, it's just look around. It's really not. It's really, really not. And equal pay, women still across the entire nation and probably the world make less than men. And why don't you care about something like that? Your child's going to grow up, or your daughter's going to grow up making less than her counterpart. Doesn't that bother you? So it's interesting but again, please ask questions. Rhett obviously has lots of really interesting, I just love the way you speak. I feel like you need to be a public speaker. Are you?
I am. I absolutely do. I do presentations and keynotes, and I've been doing that for a very long time. Very, very fortunate to have that skill set cultivated when I spent my time in undergrad at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. So a big shout out to UMES, that historically Black college, the very small school on the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Okay.
And first, I'd like to give my condolences, thinking about Maryland, because I am a Marylander, about the incident that happened at Morgan State University. Um, Absolutely terrible. I don't want to get too much into it, but people can absolutely Google and research that, an active shooter on campus, and absolutely terrible that is the world in which we live. And it's interesting, going back to what you were saying about the professional organization. One thing that I think is not always given the credence that it should be is that everyone is tuned into their favorite radio station, which is WeFM, which is what's in it for me. And when you think about how adding diverse perspectives or voices or people or body shapes or religious ideologies or political ideologies or affiliations come into the room, far too often people are concerned about the way it will challenge what they hold so dear to, what they cling on to as what's right or what is the truth.
Right.
And instead of being exposed in a way that invites people to say, hey, tell me more about that. And it's okay if I don't agree. And learning to disagree agreeably is not only one of the greatest teachings that Dale Carnegie gave us through How to Win Friends and Influence People, a book that everyone should read, but also a life skill that we should practice with greater frequency and regularity, is that it's okay to disagree agreeably.
Yeah.
I don't need to win you to my side. Most people just want to feel heard.
Yeah.
And if you choose to go with the direction you already were, or I can invite you to learn a little bit more, well, then fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that you are in these rooms challenging sort of the status quo and inviting people, again, to go back and practice metacognition. When you think about what you're thinking about, why is that your dominant thought?
Yeah.
When you look around the room, why are you okay with the fact that there seems to be, again, either this racial hegemony or this religious hegemony or this ethnic hegemony or this gender hegemony? Why is that okay with you? Where does that thought come from?
Yeah. I like that. This is going to be the topic next month when we do a presentation every month.
Absolutely. Oh, that's
we have a great question from AJ. I feel like AJ, you're here a lot and ask great questions. So thank you for. I've seen you before. So can you share some examples of some innovative approaches or best practices in promoting diversity and inclusion within organizations?
Yeah, absolutely, AJ. Thank you so much for the question. And I'm going to give 3 examples, and I want you all to know that, please, this is not going to be profound. These are going to be things that I think are simple, but I am going to challenge people to think about it in a way that maybe they have not thought about it. One is you have to invite multiple people into the room and be genuinely interested in what it is they have to say. And especially to invite in those that have dissenting opinions or even critics. That is so important, because in most workplaces, what winds up happening is we tend to delineate between those that agree with us and those that don't. And that speaks to the affinity biases that we have, where there are people that come from where I come from, or they think the way I think, or I believe we share these values, even though they're only surface level. We never go too deep, but I can sense that we can be community. We have to invite people in. 2, when you invite people into these rooms and you're having these courageous conversations and you are creating spaces where you allow people to be brave and not to be chastised for what they think and feel and believe based on their own lived experience, you have to be open to understanding their why. Because for a lot of us, the opinions that we have are not really our own. They are the opinions of our community. They are the opinions of our parents. They are the opinions of our inner circle, our family, the school we went to. And most of us have not been invited to practice metacognition, to think about what we think about. We have been invited into a level of indoctrination that we just see as commonplace. You think that way, and I think this way, and I've never really been challenged to think anything differently. So you have to be open. And then from there, when you understand a person's why, it humanizes not just them, but their outlook on the world. It's okay if we disagree, especially when I understand your why. I don't have to believe your why. I don't really have to accept your why, but at least I understand where you're coming from. And then from there, the third thing is that you have to invite people in to truly say, is this a place where you are open and comfortable with me presenting an opinion or ideas that may run counter to what you think? And I'm not doing it in a way to pedestalize myself or to intellectually beat down on your opinion or to hit you with facts and figures that you may have never been exposed to. But can I share something with you? Are you open to hearing something different? One, having that level of dialogue and that level of conversation changes things. So when you think about a best practice, I think something that we all have to do is audit not only the work that we're doing and the way in which that we show up to the workplace, but all our policies, our practices and procedures. To say the status quo, well, it's always been done that way.
Right.
We have to make sure that we are auditing practices and auditing culture in a way that invites people in and doesn't just invite them in so they can see, but they can't really take part, but invites them in and allows them to take a seat and say, expose us, educate us, put us in a position where not only your opinion is valued, but we can figure out how do we take it from ideation to execution.
Yeah.
And the last thing I say is to partner and to be a part of opportunities like this. Whether it's a podcast, a book, a TV show, expose yourself to things that aren't often on your radar. And again, it allows you to have a different level of perspective and understanding. And I think when we can humanize not only the work, the conversation, the practices, the people, we'll find that we can create harmony in places where we only see dissent.
Yeah. See, public speaker, you gotta.
Thank you. That's very,
kind of you. I want to share one other thing, and then we have another great question. So I think sometimes, or a lot of times, with topics like diversity and inclusion, or I'm a culture consultant. I kind of say I'm adjacent to DEI. That it feels like a big thing, and it is a big thing. But if you just tackle it little by little by little, you'll make change. And that's, culture, whatever you're doing, whatever kind of culture you're trying to create at your organization, it takes a lot of time. And so I think that's something to think about too. And just to give a quick example, I had on LinkedIn Live sometime this year, a brewery where, it's craft brew. They really wanted to get more diversity into their organization. And when they were looking at the ways in which they might keep out diversity, they realized just their job posting, of course, says must love craft brew. Well, who is more exposed to craft brew? They took that line out and changed it to like, we'll teach you to love craft brew or something like that. And that little thing had a huge impact. And so there's, just things like that. And they ended up completely changing the way their workforce looked and growing and opening up their doors to other members of the community, because now they had other members of the community in their organization working. So just kind of wanted to share that. Okay, so Isis says, how do you challenge an executive leader to be more approachable to those discussions and practices?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Isis. And again, thank you so much for your question. One of the things that I like to pose when I serve as the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for a nonprofit in San Francisco. And when I'm working with our CEO or other executive leaders, the thing that I always challenge them to remember is, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? And when you are grounding your thoughts in, is the goal to be right and to showcase sort of the power dynamic that we already know is there, or is it to be effective? Can you lean into curiosity? Can you lean into humility? Can you humanize yourself outside of the role that you have? And to show people that you are open to feedback, you are open to criticism, you are open to perspectives that are outside of your own, because it makes the workplace that much richer. And when I ground myself and I ground other leaders to challenge you to say, again, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? Because when you think about what makes someone approachable, first off, we know in the workplace setting that there are these power dynamics that already exist, and there is an intrinsic fear, maybe even an unhealthy fear, that most people have about not upsetting the apple cart or doing something that could end the way they live their lives. Because if your livelihood is put in jeopardy, you'll never speak up. You'll never be your authentic self. You'll never feel safe enough psychologically or physically to do anything because you don't want to rock the boat. So when you think about what makes someone approachable, it is not just in the way you think, it is the way in which you show up. So you have to allow people or challenge leaders to think about, is it right? Or you want to be right? Or do you want to be effective? How much quality time, and not just quality time, do you spend with those that are outside of your immediate sphere of influence, your executive leadership team, your senior leaders, but frontline staff? And I want to make sure that I can emphasize the importance of not just quality time, but quantity time. And you will understand this as a parent, and that's something that I've learned, is it's not just about the cliche of, oh, we got to spend quality time. Well, the more quantity we spend together, it will turn into quality. So if the only time folks see you is at an executive retreat or a town hall, or they see you walking in the morning, but you're on your phone and you are not saying hello, you are not genuinely interested in the people that work with you and for you and for the agency or the corporation, then you are already putting yourself in the light that you're an untouchable. And when something is untouchable, most people associate fear with that because that's the way we are hardwired. We are hardwired for the negative. When someone says, you know what, I need to talk to you, 9 out of 10 people, and this is a lot of research that's been done at Penn State, will say like, oh, about what? What, is everything okay? Let me drop what I'm doing. And the thought isn't, what if it all works out? The thought is, what did I do wrong? So we are biologically and neurochemically hardwired for negativity. So you have to know that when you're entering spaces, there's a power dynamic. We're hardwired for negativity. And if you are not challenging the way in which you show up and being approachable, making sure that people can come to you and feel comfortable in your presence, then nothing will change. And I see that the second point is a lot of corporate challenges for HR professionals, again, are getting the point across, even with the education. And it is challenging. And I want to make sure that I can highlight how difficult the work is and how meaningful it is that your workplace has people like you, Isis, there trying to walk that delicate tightrope of doing what is necessary for the agency, but also trying to humanize the work or to give suggestions that may run counter to thoughts that people don't have, which goes back to our original point of that metacognition, why it's so important that you think about what you're thinking about, and then it impacts the way in which you show up in the world.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to echo everything you said, sometimes you I think sometimes people's ears perk up when you say DEI, and it's like, oh, we already did a couple trainings on that. So you can move away from that topic if that's the sense you get, and just talk about inclusivity, and maybe because that's my world, right? Inclusive versus exclusive. So like your example, hey CEO, if you come through the workplace in the morning and you don't talk to anybody and you go in your room or in your office and you never come out, then that's an exclusive behavior. And it's not about the people of color or the women it's just that makes people feel excluded from you and being able to talk to you. And so sometimes I think it can help when you're feeling some resistance to just, and what happens when there's exclusive behavior? People start to gossip. That's exclusive behavior. People start, so I don't know how you feel about that advice, Rhett, but
no, I think that it's sound. And I think, again, we don't give enough credence to just human nature.
Yeah.
And when you understand that some of these behaviors aren't about being exclusive or inclusive, it's about you trying to combat your human nature. It's about you combating your hardwiring. And one of the things that people will tell you to do, especially when you're in the personal and professional development sphere, especially if you have to give a speech or you have to stand in front of a room, they'll tell you to do a superhero pose. They'll tell you to do something that evokes something powerful because you are changing your biochemistry. You are changing the way you show up, but you can only do that when you've been challenged to do that. Because again, when we go back to the example of being hardwired to think negativity, well, everything that we're exposed to is negative. And we live in a global society where you can find out that there is something terrible that has happened across the world and it impacts you. So there is negativity happening in your front yard, in your backyard, to the left of you, to the right to you. It's easy to understand why the human in you can be a cynic.
Yeah.
And if
It's
you are not
survival.
being intentional about combating that, and that goes back to, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective?
Yeah.
I've had conversations with colleagues, and especially when you get around cultural heritage or DEI work, a lot of times you can never really get deep into the knowledge or the history or the research that's been done, because it makes people uncomfortable. So
Right.
sometimes you got to find out what is that sweet spot, and to challenge, are you uncomfortable because the information is something you've never been exposed to, or are you uncomfortable because this runs counter to your hardwiring?
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't about me saying that you're a bad person for not knowing, and no one knows everything, but it's, are you open to being exposed? And if you are, great, let's go at a pace in which you're comfortable. And
Yeah.
if you're not, then maybe we should find something else where we can find middle ground.
Yeah. I sort of jokingly serious around being an HR ninja. Sometimes you all you can do is drop little nuggets here and there, throw a little ninja star. So for example, if you're getting real pushback from your CEO, just randomly in conversation, drop a nugget. Like, did you know that such and such, that wasn't in my history books when I was a kid? Just kind of, and just kind of plant little seeds, and if that's all you can do, then that's all you can do. But so that's what being an HR, and same with culture. I'm like, here's something you could do that you don't need a CEO's approval for to improve your culture.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you so much, Rhett. We are out of time. Do go to Rhett's website. It's just rhettburden.com. His name's right there. Just put a .com at the end of it for his books, and to get to know him more. And thank you again, Rhett. I hope to see you at a Society for Human Resources Management conference in the green room.
Oh, yes, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Catherine, again for inviting me back on your platform. It's been a pleasure to be here twice. I don't know how many people are so lucky to have that honor. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you to each and every one of you that are here, that have engaged, that said where you're from, that asked questions. And please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat, to learn more about you, and to be in community with you. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you. Everybody loved you. Lots of great comments.
Oh, so thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.
I'm not sure if it's over. It's taking a long time. Maybe we'll just end. I usually like to. Oh, there. Oh, no, it's still going.